Hey there everyone, welcome back to another impressions video. And today we're going to look at Conception 2 on the PS Vita. And Conception is kind of a weird series. I played the first one. I have an impressions video of the first one if you're interested, somewhere in my files. And the first one, it was alright. Not great, not terrible, just okay. And this one, the real question here is it better? So let's get into just my impressions about it. Conception 2. First, I'm playing on the Vita version. There is also a 3DS version, and from what I hear, they are pretty much identical except for, I guess, some of the control aspects are a little different. Like, obviously you don't have a second analog stick on the 3DS, so you don't have the camera controls with the bumpers on the 3DS, and I assume the map is on the bottom screen. But other than that, I hear that it's essentially the same game, except there's obviously graphical differences. And well, I guess we'll start with that. The graphics for the game are not too bad. Like the first game, they're it's hard to explain the graphic style they're going for. The 2D images kind of move like I don't even know how to explain it. Like Shrinky Dinks. If anybody knows what that is, thumbs up for you. They're like 2D cutouts that move at kind of sectioned points with jiggle physics also. So it's like if you had 2D images, 2D like paper dolls that have jiggle physics. That would be your art style for the 2D art in the game. It's actually not that bad. It was really awkward in the PSP one originally because like less parts moved, so it was really weird. But now it's a little bit better. It's not. I mean, it's still a little strange looking, but it's not as strange looking as it used to be. But beyond that, there's animated sequences. There's like a little kind of anime shorts in the for events, and those all look really nice. They all come up really good on the Vita screen, so everything looks really nice. Those I have no problem with. The dungeons themselves are simultaneously nice looking but boring, and I'll explain that. Some of the dungeons are not very varied, I guess. Each dungeon is different, don't get me wrong there, but inside the dungeon, it's like one panel on the wall repeated ad infinitum forever. I mean, that's all you'll see is that one panel on the wall, and then there's like a separate panel for doors. So it's not like an incredibly, like, I don't know, art intensive, even though the design of the dungeons themselves look good. I mean, if you can think of like the dungeons in Persona 3, they're kind of colorful, and in Persona 3 they changed colors and kind of style by going up levels. In this one, each dungeon, there's like a bunch of small dungeons, has like their own kind of flavor, and they're not all dark. It's not like very dungeony. I mean, you go in and they're like bright and colorful, and you know, some of the stages are relatively nice looking. They're just not varied within the dungeon. They're like completely the same throughout. So, you know, and it's not so bad for some dungeons because they're only 5 floors, but some, when you're in like 25 floors of dungeons, they sometimes change actually, but it's not exactly like huge changes sometimes, and sometimes you won't even notice until you be like, oh, I guess the wall panel is slightly see-through now. And so it's not like an incredibly beautiful game, but for what it is, it looks good. And let's see, I guess we'll talk about music is not annoying. That's good. Beyond that, it's nothing special. I didn't find anything like that was really stand out. It's interesting, but it's not annoying. So bonus, I guess. Let's see. Well, my main complaint from the last game was that there were a million characters and they were all annoying. And this game actually has less characters than the previous game. The previous game, I think, had 12 girls and your one character. In this game, you have 7 girls. And are they all annoying? Mostly, yeah. So, the characterizations in this game are not any better than the previous game. Actually, they're... I mean, yeah, I'm thankful that there's less of them, so I don't have to, like, sit through their various conversations anymore. But now it's, you know, they're all anime tropes. That's all they are, essentially. They're like not real interesting characters. And I mean, sometimes something interesting happens, but they're not like incredibly interesting to the point where I cared at all about any of them. And essentially all I did was pick the one I liked and stuck with that one for like the vast majority of the dungeons. So in this game, you bring the girl with you into the dungeon. She's like your team partner. So they level up separately. So I guess you could bring them all in the dungeons. And I tried them all out, but I just picked the one I liked the best with the best kind of, you know, abilities, and stuck with that one for the rest of the game. And there's no penalty for doing that. I mean, you don't even really have to level up the girls' stories if you don't want to. I mean, I leveled all of them up to their max level, but I mean, not their actual level, but your kind of friendliness with them. So the more like friendly you are with them, the stronger your kids will be. So I guess I should mention that if you haven't heard of this game, essentially you have these 7 girls that are they're like special S-ranked, super strong kind of magic users, you could say. It's not exactly that, but they have like these everybody has a magic seal on their body that gives them some kind of powers to fight monsters, and these are like the highest ranked girls, I guess, and you do a kind of ritual with them, which is essentially like sex, I guess. It's not risque in any way. Like the sex that I mean, beyond like the girls like essentially being nude and making sexy poses and noises, there's no actual sex scenes. Like, I mean, the only time that you're in the scene with the girl, like your character, is like there's a handhold, like they grasp hands, and that's it. So it's essentially like this sex part is like a handshake, essentially. So it's not really over the top or anything. But you know, by doing that ritual, you build your party, and that's like really the coolest part of the game. Not the ritual part, but the building your party part. And you can have up to 12 kids in your party and your main group. So you have 4 groups altogether, you and the girl you're with, and then 3 groups of 3 kids. Wait, is that right? Yeah. So I'm wrong. 9 kids. 9 kids in your party. So you have 3 kids in each group, and you have a ton of classes. So you have a ton of abilities to customize your groups with. And you have a ton of ways to make these groups that you can kind of wreck stuff with. And it's not, I mean, there's a lot of classes. You'll start off with a bunch of classes, and the more you get friendly with the girls, the stronger their kids will be. So you'll start to unlock classes by stats. But there's other ways to unlock classes. So sometimes you have to level up a certain class to a certain point, and then a new class will unlock. Or you have to get some rare drops from monsters in the dungeons, and then using that rare drop you can make a certain class. So there are a lot of classes, more than it even appears in the beginning. You get a list in the beginning with a bunch of question marks, and you think, oh, that's all the classes, but actually there's way more than that that aren't shown. So, and I didn't even get them all. There were some I was just tired of trying to get the rare drop to drop, so I gave up. That was the Trickster and the Dark Knight. I just couldn't get. Well, I mean, I probably could have. I was just tired of sitting in that same dungeon, searching for the same enemy, hoping that I'd get the same rare drop. It just never happened, and I was doing it for like an hour, and I just got tired, and I gave up. But I guess there's other ways. But even without unlocking all the classes, there are some classes who are super powerful and some classes who are just kind of mediocre. And depending on how you build your parties, you can kind of customize your parties around each group has their own little, specialty, I guess. So you can have like a physical attacking group with some strong physical attackers, and then maybe you want to put someone who's a defensive group in there, so it'll, rounds out the group. Or maybe you want someone with magic in that group, so you can do a lot of special attacks. It's a lot of thinking, which is cool for making the party. Totally unnecessary for the game, though, because overall this game was painfully easy, like ridiculously easy. It was to the point where, like, I was doing I one-shotted a boss in the beginning of the game, and then, like, even after that, almost every boss took about 2 turns to kill. Like, literally, they would get 1 attack before they were dead. So it was so easy, and if you really thought about the way you made your parties, like, you can just wreck the bosses. It's so easy. Even, like, the final... There's, like, for example, in the story, there's some characters who you're gonna have to fight eventually, and, like, they kind of build them up throughout the story to be these badasses, and then, like, you get to the battle and you just wreck them. I, like, beat them both in 1 turn, and it was, like, this ridiculous, like, kind of, like, you were building up this boss battle for that, because it was so ridiculously easy. And this isn't like I wasn't over leveled or anything, and like, to make it the point, for the last dungeon, I went through 3 total dungeons that unlock in the last section without fighting any enemies. So I didn't grind at all for the last part. I mean, for the dungeon before that, my level was exactly the same as when I went in to the last 3 dungeons. I used, like, a special ability so enemies couldn't see me, and I just ran through the dungeons to the exit, fought the boss, and got out. So even then, the final boss of the game was ridiculously easy. And I think, like, that's one of the biggest problems with the game, besides the kind of not interesting anime trope characters and the, kind of repetitive dungeon crawling of it. The easiness, the level of difficulty is so not correct. It's just, if there were a way to change it to make it harder, I would have done that. I would have done that right from the beginning after I, like, one-shotted bosses, because there was no way I was gonna... I knew right then when I one-shotted the boss that this was like gonna be really easy, and it was, which made it a less fun than it could have been, because I really did think about how I built my parties, and I centered them around these, like, special attacks, and did, like, all this kind of weird min-maxing to get the attacks perfect, and then, like, it was totally unnecessary. I was, like, hoping to have at least some tough battles, but there were none. I don't think I died on a boss ever. I think there were some bosses where I, like, put it on auto battle and I still won. So that was, like, it's really easy. So, if you happen to play and you seem like you're having trouble with it, just build your party a different way. That's the only advice I can really give, because for me, it was ridiculously easy. And what else do I want to talk about in this? I think well, mostly this game is interesting to people because it seems like it is a goofy concept, and the main thing is, like, having the kids, and that's really a fun part of the game, and I would totally recommend it for that. It's fun to build the parties. It's fun to level them up. It's fun to unlock the new abilities and the new classes, because there are so many. And for example, here's my pro tip: if you wanna like rock this game, just get a Dungeoneer and just rain on people. The Dungeoneer is, like, the best class, and maybe the Astromancer. If you can get those two, and then just have, like, a ninja would be helpful too. So if you got those three and just like built parties around those three's abilities, you'll be doing really good. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Conception 2. How would I don't know. In the end, I would say if you think you're gonna like a third-person dungeon crawler that's, you know, a little on the easy side, really on the easy side, and somewhat repetitive. I mean, there's a lot of enemies that repeat their colors. I mean, just palette swapped enemies, and kind of the dungeons. The dungeons are randomly generated, so they're not the same every time, but the overall feeling of each dungeon isn't like incredibly different from every other dungeon. There's no like, you know, there's no special tricks. There's no like, this is the warping dungeon, or this is the dungeon where there's tons of like one-way roads and stuff like that. There's nothing like that. They're all like pretty much set up the same way. And so if that sounds alright to you, it's not like it's not intense dungeon crawling. It's pretty like laid back. You can play it in small chunks. It's actually pretty good as a portable game because you can run through a 5-level dungeon in half an hour. And even the longer dungeons don't even come to the end, and they're all sectioned off into sections of 5 usually, so it's pretty easy just to run through. And you can get out of the dungeon and warp right back to the same place you were with no troubles. It's overall like a simple, kind of interesting RPG, I guess. Besides the ridiculous concept, the party building is awesome. That's the best part of the game, really. I would recommend playing it just for the party building, just to build these kind of crazy parties. It's the kind of thing where if you get really into it, it's really interesting. If that doesn't sound interesting to you, the game itself is going to be pretty mediocre. And overall, it's a little better than mediocre, I think, only because of the battle system and the party building. That's about all I can say about Conception 2. Hope you guys, I don't know, hope you guys learned something. Maybe influence you to buy it or not buy it, I guess. Actually, in the end, I'd recommend it if you like this kind of third-person dungeon crawling RPG. It's not special. It's not going to be this game that you think is super awesome. It's not going to be like a game that everyone's going to be like, you got to buy this game for this system because, you know, this is the game that's going to sell you the 3DS, or this is the game that's going to sell you the Vita. It's not like a Persona 4. This is quite a few steps below that. But it's still relatively fun for what it is. And, you know, I spent 30 hours or so beating it, so can't really say it wasn't unfun. It was pretty fun, but not spectacular. So that's about it. I will catch you guys next time.